For more than 2,000 years, one story has haunted the imagination of historians, philosophers, and explorers alike. A tale first written by the Greek philosopher Plato of a great island empire that rose to power, flourished with unimaginable wealth and knowledge, and then, in a single day and night of catastrophe, vanished beneath the sea.
Welcome to Matter of Time, your destination for real, unique, and eye-opening stories. From hidden truths to fascinating events, we bring you content that informs, inspires, and keeps you hooked. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, because every story is better when we experience it together.
The legend of Atlantis is one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. Was it real history? Was it an allegory designed to warn humanity against arrogance and pride? Or was it something else entirely, a memory of a forgotten civilization erased from the pages of time? Plato described Atlantis not as a dream or myth, but as a real land that existed beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. According to his account, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined. It was a mighty naval power, wealthy beyond measure, filled with magnificent temples, advanced engineering, and natural resources that seemed limitless. Its armies stretched across Europe and Africa, challenging even the emerging states of ancient Greece.
But just as Atlantis reached the height of its power, the story takes its dramatic turn. According to Plato, the Atlanteans became corrupted by greed, power, and hubris. And then, as if struck by divine punishment, their once great civilization was obliterated in cataclysmic disaster. Within a single day and night, Atlantis sank beneath the waves, lost forever to history. What makes this story so compelling is not simply its grandeur, but its details. Plato didn't describe Atlantis vaguely. He gave measurements, layouts, geography, even the colors of stone used to build its temples. He spoke of concentric rings of land and sea surrounding a central island, with canals connecting them to the ocean. He described elephants roaming the land, hot and cold springs, fertile plains, mountains rich in precious metals, and an abundance of gold, silver, and a mysterious metal called orichalcum. Could such precise details have come purely from Plato's imagination, or was he drawing on real history? Memories passed down from earlier civilizations, preserved in the stories of Egyptian priests and shared with Greek legislators like Solon, whom Plato claimed was his source. These questions have driven generations of explorers to search for Atlantis across the globe. From the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, from the Sahara Desert to the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, researchers have scoured the earth for traces of a sunken city that may or may not have existed. And yet the mystery endures. The majority of scholars argue that Atlantis was never real, dismissing it as myth or parable. But a smaller group, fueled by discoveries of ancient lost cities and unexplained ruins around the world, continue to believe that Plato's account may hold more truth than we dare to admit. Before we dive into the modern search for Atlantis, we must first understand the origins of the story itself. Who was Plato? Why did he write about this vanished empire? And why has this single tale captivated the world for more than 2 millennia?
To understand Atlantis, we have to begin with the man who first recorded it, Plato. Born in Athens around 428 BCE, Plato is often regarded as one of the greatest philosophers of all time. His writings laid the foundations of Western thought, influencing philosophy, politics, mathematics, and even science. But what makes Plato remarkable is that he didn't simply write abstract theories. He wove his ideas into dialogues, using characters, settings, and stories to communicate deeper truths. Atlantis appears in two of Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. These texts, written around 360 BCE, are where the entire legend originates. In them, Plato claims that the story of Atlantis was not his own invention, but something passed down through history. According to him, the Greek statesman Solon, one of the 7 sages of Greece, had traveled to Egypt more than a century earlier. While visiting the priests of Sais, Solon supposedly learned of an ancient empire that had existed thousands of years before his time. An empire that had grown powerful, waged war against prehistoric Athens, and was ultimately destroyed in a single cataclysmic event. Plato describes Atlantis as a mighty island kingdom larger than Libya and Asia combined. Its capital city was a marvel of engineering, built in a series of concentric circles of land and water. Bridges connected the rings, canals linked them to the sea, and a massive central island held the royal palace and temple of Poseidon, the god said to have fathered the Atlanteans. The city glittered with red, white, and black stone, adorned with gold, silver, and orialcum, a mysterious metal even more precious than gold. But according to Plato, Atlantis was not a utopia. It was an empire with armies, fleets of warships, and ambitions of conquest. At first, the Atlanteans lived in harmony, guided by wisdom and justice. But as time passed, they grew greedy, arrogant, and corrupt. Their leaders sought to dominate the world. And that was when, according to Plato, the gods intervened. In Critias, Plato writes that, "In one terrible day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis, in like manner, disappeared in the depths of the sea." The destruction was sudden and total. The island vanished beneath the waves, leaving nothing behind. For Plato's audience, the message was clear. Civilizations that succumb to arrogance and hubris will ultimately destroy themselves. Atlantis became a cautionary tale, a warning wrapped in the grandeur of myth. But here's where the puzzle begins. If Atlantis was merely a parable, why did Plato include so many technical details? He describes its geography, its architecture, its natural resources, even its political system. He places it beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar. He describes fertile plains, elephants roaming the land, and mountains to the north. These are not vague images meant to symbolize an idea. They are the kind of concrete details one might include when describing a real place. And this is why, for over 2,000 years, scholars, explorers, and adventurers have debated the true nature of Atlantis. Was it fiction? Was it history? Or was it something in between? A story rooted in real events, but transformed through retelling into legend. The fascination deepened in the 19th century when another mythical city, once thought to be fiction, the city of Troy, was discovered by Heinrich Schliemann in 1868. If Troy, long dismissed as legend, turned out to be real, then could Atlantis also be more than a myth? That question sparked a modern quest that has yet to end. From the Mediterranean islands of Santorini and Crete to the sands of the Sahara Desert, from the Caribbean to the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, countless theories have been put forward. Each new discovery brings us closer, or perhaps farther, from the truth of Atlantis. But to understand where Atlantis might have been, we have to examine the places that best fit Plato's description. And that begins with the Mediterranean.
If there is one region most often linked to Atlantis, it is the Mediterranean. After all, this was the world Plato knew, and many scholars argue that his descriptions must have been inspired by events and civilizations close to Greece. The most compelling candidate in this region is the volcanic island of Santorini, known in ancient times as Thera. Around 1600 BCE, Thera was home to the advanced Minoan civilization, centered on the nearby island of Crete. The Minoans were skilled sailors, engineers, and artists. They built multi-story houses, developed sophisticated plumbing systems, and created stunning frescoes that still survive to this day.
Their influence stretched across the Aegean, establishing them as one of the great maritime powers of the ancient world. But Thera was also a ticking time bomb. The island sat atop a massive volcanic caldera. When it erupted in one of the most powerful explosions in recorded history, the devastation was unimaginable. Entire settlements were buried beneath ash. The city of Akrotiri, preserved like a prehistoric Pompeii, reveals how suddenly life was interrupted. Shockwaves from the eruption likely destroyed Minoan fleets, triggered tsunamis across the Mediterranean, and disrupted weather patterns as far away as Egypt. To many researchers, this cataclysm sounds strikingly similar to Plato's tale of Atlantis, a powerful maritime culture destroyed in a single catastrophic event, a civilization that seemingly disappeared from history, leaving behind ruins buried under ash and sea. Could the eruption of Thera have been the real event that inspired Plato's legend? There are certainly parallels. The Minoans were powerful enough to rival mainland Greece. Their architecture, with its advanced engineering, may have seemed almost otherworldly to later generations. The volcanic destruction matches Plato's description of sudden catastrophe, and the concentric structure of Santorini's caldera even echoes the circular city layout described in Critias. Yet the theory has its problems. For one, Plato explicitly places Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Hercules, not within the Mediterranean. The Minoans thrived more than 1,000 years before Plato's timeline for Atlantis, and while Thera's eruption was catastrophic, it did not cause the island to sink beneath the ocean. The ruins of Akrotiri are still there today, preserved under layers of volcanic ash, not submerged under the Atlantic. Others point to Crete itself as a candidate. Home to the great palace of Knossos, Crete was the true heart of Minoan civilization. Here, massive complexes with labyrinthine corridors, storerooms, and throne rooms gave rise to legends of the Minotaur. The Minoans dominated Mediterranean trade routes, built advanced harbors, and left behind myths of power and mystery. But again, the timeline and geography don't align perfectly with Plato's account. Still, the Minoan hypothesis remains one of the most persuasive. It suggests that Plato may have drawn on cultural memories of a real catastrophe, the volcanic destruction of Thera and the decline of the Minoans, and wove those memories into his story of Atlantis. For centuries, this theory dominated academic debate, especially in the wake of excavations at Santorini and Crete in the early 20th century. But not everyone is convinced. Plato's details remain stubbornly specific: concentric circles, elephants, fertile plains, and a location beyond the known world. For those who take his words more literally, the Mediterranean is simply too small, too familiar, too close to Greece. If Atlantis was real, they argue, it must lie farther afield. And that belief has led researchers to some of the most unexpected locations on Earth, from the deserts of Africa to the jungles of South America and the depths of the Atlantic Ocean itself. Each location offers tantalizing clues, but also new mysteries. And perhaps the most intriguing of all lies not in the Mediterranean, but in the endless sands of the Sahara Desert.
At first glance, the Sahara Desert may seem like the last place to search for Atlantis, but hidden within its vast expanse lies a geological wonder that has fueled one of the most compelling modern theories: the Richat structure, also known as the Eye of Africa. Located in Mauritania, the Richat structure is a massive formation visible from space, a series of concentric rings of rock, 40 kilometers in diameter, carved into the desert floor. When astronauts first observed it from orbit, they were struck by its resemblance to a colossal bullseye etched into the Earth. To many, it is simply a geological anomaly, formed by erosion and uplift. But to others, the Richat structure looks uncannily like Plato's description of Atlantis.
Think about it. Plato described Atlantis as a circular city, built with alternating rings of land and water connected by bridges and canals. The reshot structure consists of exactly that: vast concentric circles rimmed by mountains to the north with an open passageway that could once have led to the sea. Some researchers argue that thousands of years ago, before desertification consumed the region, this part of the Sahara may have been lush, fertile, and even connected to the Atlantic Ocean through ancient waterways. Supporters of this theory point to striking correlations. Plato mentioned white, red, and black stones, colors that match the minerals found in the reshot. He spoke of elephants inhabiting Atlantis, and Mauritania, even in prehistoric times, was home to large populations of elephants whose remains still litter the desert. He mentioned fertile plains, rivers, and a plateau to the north, all of which can be traced in the geography around the reshot structure. Could it be that Atlantis was not a mythical island, but a real city buried beneath the sands of Africa? In 2008, researchers such as George C. Alexander and Natalie Rosen began studying the site more closely. They measured its dimensions and found that its scale was remarkably similar to Plato's description: 23 kilometers across for the central rings, close to the figures given in Critias. They argued that with higher sea levels or catastrophic flooding, the reshot could once have been connected to the ocean, making it a plausible candidate for Atlantis. But there are problems with this theory. For one, there is no clear evidence of advanced civilization at the reshot site. Unlike submerged ruins found off the coasts of India, Japan, or Cuba, no streets, temples, or megalithic structures have been uncovered here. Critics argue that while the geography is striking, it is purely natural, a geological formation rather than the remnants of a lost empire. And yet the coincidences remain difficult to ignore. The Eye of Africa is one of the few places on Earth that matches Plato's circular description so perfectly. Combined with evidence of prehistoric water systems and fossils of marine life scattered across the Sahara, it raises a tantalizing possibility that Atlantis may have been swallowed not by the sea, but by shifting climates and catastrophic floods that transformed fertile plains into desert. If true, this would mean Atlantis lies not beneath the ocean, but beneath the sands of the Sahara, a civilization erased not by mythic punishment, but by the raw forces of nature. Still, the Sahara is only one piece of the puzzle. Other researchers point westward, toward the depths of the Atlantic itself. If Plato meant what he wrote, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, then perhaps the true resting place of Atlantis lies beneath the very ocean that bears its name.
If Atlantis truly lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, then the most natural place to search is the Atlantic Ocean itself. After all, the very name Atlantic echoes Plato's tale. Could the ocean be hiding the remains of humanity's most enduring legend? The idea of a sunken civilization beneath the waves has fascinated explorers for centuries. Stories of lost cities, swallowed by the sea, exist across cultures, from flood myths in Mesopotamia and India to tales of submerged kingdoms in Celtic and Native American traditions. If so many cultures remember a cataclysm, could there be a kernel of truth behind Atlantis? In the 20th century, attention turned to the Caribbean. Off the coast of Bimini in the Bahamas, divers discovered a strange underwater formation known as the Bimini Road. Consisting of massive flat stones arranged in a linear pattern, the site quickly became associated with Atlantis. Some believe the stones are the remains of an ancient harbor or road, evidence of a lost civilization. Skeptics argue the Bimini Road is a natural formation of beach rock, fractured over time. Yet the mystery endures, fueled by the uncanny alignment of the blocks. Even more dramatic are the claims from Cuba. In 2001, a Canadian research team using sonar equipment off the coast of Cuba detected what appeared to be vast stone structures nearly 600 meters below the surface. The sonar images showed symmetrical shapes, pyramids, roads, and rectangular formations stretching across several square kilometers. If these were indeed the remains of an ancient city, it would rank among the greatest archaeological discoveries of all time. But the depths make exploration almost impossible. Few expeditions have returned to the site, and data remains limited. To this day, the Cuban underwater city remains a tantalizing mystery, perhaps evidence of Atlantis, or perhaps an illusion created by natural rock formations deep beneath the sea. Beyond the Caribbean, other submerged ruins have been found around the world. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, massive stone terraces and steps lie beneath the water, resembling an ancient cityscape. In India's Gulf of Cambay, sonar has revealed submerged streets and structures, some dating back 9,000 years. These discoveries prove one thing with certainty. Ancient civilizations did exist in places now swallowed by the ocean. Could Atlantis have been one of them? Plato described an empire powerful enough to challenge Athens, located across the sea, with advanced engineering and wealth from natural resources. If such a civilization existed on islands in the mid-Atlantic, perhaps the Azores, Canary Islands, or even submerged lands now lost to rising seas, it could explain the origin of the legend. Geologists point out that at the end of the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago, global sea levels rose dramatically as ice sheets melted. Vast areas of coastal land were swallowed by the sea, erasing entire settlements. Could Atlantis have been one of them? A real civilization destroyed during the cataclysmic floods that marked the Younger Dryas period? This theory ties Atlantis not only to myth, but to real, measurable geological events. Catastrophic flooding, sudden climate shifts, and even cosmic impacts have all been proposed as the trigger for Atlantis's destruction. And when we look at the timing, Plato's date for Atlantis, around 11,600 years ago, lines up eerily with these global cataclysms. So was Atlantis a casualty of natural disaster, buried beneath the ocean waves? Or was it something even bigger, a civilization erased by forces beyond our imagination?
For centuries, the story of Atlantis has remained suspended between myth and history, faith and skepticism. On one side, scholars argue that Plato invented the tale as an allegory, a cautionary story warning against pride, greed, and the corruption of power. On the other side, explorers, visionaries, and alternative historians insist that his words preserve a memory of a real place, an advanced civilization destroyed by cataclysm, erased from history yet not from human memory. Modern science has done little to settle the debate. Geological evidence proves that catastrophic events did occur around the time Plato described. The Younger Dryas period, beginning around 12,800 years ago, saw sudden cooling, massive floods, and the extinction of countless species. Some researchers suggest these events may have been triggered by fragments of a comet striking Earth, unleashing fires, tsunamis, and a mini ice age. If entire ecosystems were wiped out, why not human civilizations as well? The discovery of Troy in the 19th century reminds us that myths can contain truth. For centuries, Troy was thought to be fiction, a story invented by Homer. Yet with persistence and determination, Heinrich Schliemann uncovered its ruins, proving that legend and history can intertwine. Could Atlantis be the next Troy, a city long dismissed as myth, waiting beneath sand, sea, or stone to be rediscovered? But even if Atlantis is never found, its significance goes beyond archaeology. The story forces us to ask questions about ourselves. How advanced were our ancestors, truly? How many civilizations have risen and fallen, their achievements erased by time? And if the Earth has seen repeated cycles of destruction, what does that mean for our own future? Plato's tale endures because it is more than just a mystery. It is a mirror. Atlantis represents the eternal struggle of human civilization, the rise from simplicity to greatness, the temptation of power, the corruption of values, and the ultimate vulnerability to forces beyond our control. Whether Atlantis was real or allegory, the lesson remains timeless. No empire is invincible. Perhaps one day, beneath the waves of the Atlantic, under the sands of the Sahara, or deep within forgotten ruins, we may uncover evidence that Plato's story was true. Or perhaps Atlantis will remain forever out of reach, a riddle designed to challenge our imagination and remind us of the fragility of human achievement. Either way, the legend continues to inspire. Explorers will keep searching, scholars will keep debating, and dreamers will keep wondering about the lost city, a place of mystery, of grandeur, of hubris, and of tragedy.